Live into the story. Feel this story. Smell this story. For Mary, Mary acts out of this incredible gesture and takes what the text says is a pound of pure nard, remarkable for its rarity and for its abundance. Nard from a plant not native in Israel, but from the Himalayas. Costly. A year's wages worth of this perfume that Mary had in her possession. And you have to ask, how did she get it and why did she have it? Why didn't she use it for Lazarus, her brother, when he died? He sounded like he needed some deodorant. Was it something she was keeping in place for her wedding someday that she realized, well, I'm probably not going to use it for that. That day's come and gone. Jesus said that she was keeping it for his burial. Can't you imagine Martha in the kitchen thinking, well, I guess that idea's out the window now. She's already used it up. But somehow, in that moment of that dinner, sitting there with Jesus and her risen brother Lazarus, and maybe with some inkling of the death that's soon to come to Jesus, the one who conquers death will first have to go through death, as all of us who deal with death must walk through before we can conquer. She becomes overwhelmed. Rushes and gets this jar, pops it open, falls at Jesus' feet, and she does something in the context that is absolutely shocking and offensive in the culture. She lets her hair down. In a culture for women to be seen never with their hair except for their husband, that flowing locks of hair are only to be reserved for the most intimate of relationships. And here she unbraids her hair and lets it fall with the nard and begins to anoint Jesus' feet with her hair and with the oil. And the text says the aroma filled the whole place. Powerful. Overwhelming. Perfume. Anointing. Extravagant love. Poured out. Without reservation. Without fear of what others are going to think. Without worry about what I might use this money for. Just a heart that bursts with adoration and love for this man, this Jesus. And she falls at his feet, giving everything that she knows to give, because she has experienced in him everything that could ever be hoped for in life. How extravagant might our response be to the Lord? In the next chapter, Jesus is going to be with his disciples, and he's going to wash his disciples' feet. You have to wonder, was he remembering Mary's anointing of his feet when he washed his disciples? This story taking place the Saturday before Palm Sunday, before Jesus makes his triumphal entry into Jerusalem. You have to wonder, was Mary's hair still reminding her with the fragrance of that evening? And his feet, now pierced by a Roman nail and no longer glistening in oil, but dripping in his own blood? What gift can I give you, O sacred head? What is sufficient? I'm sure there was this awkward silence when the scene was going down. What do you do? What do you say? Well, leave it to Judas, who's a lot more like me in this story than the devoted Mary, who sits back and says, you know, we could have used that to better work. We could have used this money that the perfume would have gained for the poor. I mean, isn't that what we're supposed to be about, helping others? Did we blow an opportunity here? A friend of mine talking about this text, who is in a different church now, different denomination, grew up as a Baptist, and he said every Baptist preacher that he heard preaching about John 12 and the anointing of Jesus' feet by Mary would always say, this is why we can't help the poor. Because Jesus said there will always be poor with us, and if we relieve the poor, then we make Jesus into a liar. No wonder people don't want to be a Baptist anymore. That's pretty twisted. It's more likely that Jesus may have been quoting Deuteronomy 15:11, which says that you are commanded to help the poor because you always have poor with you. Or I really like what one commentator said, which is that when we talk about always having poor with you, it means for us in the community of faith, the poor should be on the inside of the walls of the church, not on the outside. But Judas calculating, adding the balance sheet, figuring it out, and says, you know, sometimes there's not a place for extravagance, and Jesus says, leave her alone. Not saying that there's a division between adoration and service. Not to say we have to choose one against the other. But we must do both. We must give of our hearts generously to those who have need, but we must give in the power of the Christ who was raised from the dead, the one who has the power over life and death. We don't just give charity, we just don't give handouts. We give the living Christ as we serve the poor and others. We offer to them the power of adoration and the power of generosity. We recognize that these two gifts walk hand in hand together. At times we give of ourselves for worship. And at times we give of ourselves to worship to the world, which is our good works, good words, good deeds, as we help others. And so, two pictures of discipleship, two definitions of love. The Judas calculating definition, or the Mary extravagant. Mother Teresa, it said, Dear Jesus, help me to spread your fragrance wherever I go. Flood my soul with your spirit and life. Penetrate and possess my whole being so utterly that my life may only be a radiance of yours. Everyone's giving off an aroma. May it be a fragrance of Christ.